So what do you do in your free time?
I write stuff sometimes, working on a book right now.
That's so cool. What's it about?
Well, it's just my first book, so I don't have that much experience. But the book I'm working on, so there's this guy who has superpowers, but he doesn't know it because there's this whole school with people with superpowers, but the government put implants inside them to suppress their abilities so they can like brainwash and control them. But basically, he is really the son of the Raven, as in the Native American god, the Raven, and he's in this love triangle with this werewolf, and I probably shouldn't spoil everything. It's a long story. I don't want to bore you, and call me paranoid, but I don't want you stealing my idea. Please don't steal my idea, okay?
If you are new to the world of writing and still working through the art of brevity, great! It takes a lot of time and practice, but I promise you will get there. You're still learning things about yourself as a writer and your stories. 10 seconds or less general goal you want to go for really helps with that paranoia of wasting people's time. But as you write more and more, it becomes a lot harder for you to talk about every story you've ever written in the normal range of a human attention span. So how do we get around this muddle? How do we communicate facts and informations about our stories in as few words as possible? Well, human language comes with a feature for that. It's called a label. A label is comprised of three parts: a list of objective characteristics that define a specific group of items, something to reference this group by, such as a name, an acronym, or a symbol, and the act of communicating this information to someone else. In other words, suppose you have this massive slush pile of stuff, say pictures of various things you've seen out in the world, and looking at them, they are all very different. Lots of things to keep track of, very mentally taxing on the brain. But then you start to see, even if all the pictures are of different things, there are some patterns here. Some pictures share characteristics with other characteristics, but they don't share those same characteristics with other pictures. So to make this slush pile a bit more organized, why don't we sort things into groups based on those characteristics? How about we start by sorting out things that are living and things that are not living? And while we can continue to refer to these piles as things that are living and things that are not living, plus you'll notice these characteristics are basically the same string of words with only one word difference. If someone isn't paying attention, it will get confusing really fast. What if you ask me for something from one pile and I give you something from the other pile instead? Society falls apart. You'll demand to speak to my manager. So let's shorten this a bit. We'll give each pile unique mouth sounds, say 2 mouth sounds each. And when we make these mouth sounds, we'll know I'm referring to the pile with the characteristics the mouth sounds refer to. We'll call this pile of living things life forms. We'll call this pile of not living things objects. I have now given each of these piles a name. You are welcome to disagree with the names I have chosen, but it doesn't change the fact that when I make the mouth sounds that make the name, the respective piles with their respective characteristics are what I mean. Of course, you can also sort these pictures into other ways as well, based on color, based on size, based on whether or not you would eat it for dinner, and so on. But for now, we have life forms and we have objects. If I flip these over and make symbols on paper that translate to the name that refers to these piles, you can look at the symbols with without me even needing to be around and go, oh, this paper says life forms, which means this paper is a pile of life forms. Everything in this pile is a living thing. And in this act of communicating what characteristics this pile has through the use of the name that refers to these characteristics, I have created a label. Even if you regroup these pictures into other categories, they will still have the characteristics of their respective group. You can continue to call them by their respective name. The labels I have signed still apply. The only time you need to change the name or the label is if an item no longer has the characteristics of the group it was once part of. Which means you can give things as many labels as you want, just maybe don't get too carried away. At the end of the day, remember the goal is brevity of communication. Not every label is relevant to the person you are talking to, and humans only have memory capacity of about 3. That's for a later video. Stories are generally assigned categories based on 2 criteria. The medium, the way in which a story is told. This can include things like books, movies, comics. And there is a genre, which is characteristics of the story itself. Genre is why you're here. The 2 top highest level genre are quite simple. Is this a story you have made up, or is it true? You can then give these genre children based on other criteria as well. But for now, though, let's focus on fiction. You can assign genre based on setting. You can assign genre based on story structure. You can assign genre based on what age group your story is meant for. You can assign genre based on what you want your audience to feel. And if there are tropes that have become extremely popular, there is often a corresponding genre to those as well, and so on. As you might have noticed from this list, yes, some genre can be applied in more than one way. Genre definitions are extremely fluid. Most people learn them from exposure and not a dictionary. You've probably never considered that Dante's Inferno and Wicked are both, in fact, fan fiction. So pick what genre you think describes what you write best. Once again, you can assign as many genre that applies to your story or the kinds of stories you like to write as you find relevant. But again, max cap at 3 when you are telling people about it. If you feel overwhelmed, simple is fine too. Vampire romance, adult thriller, alien erotica. And when you finally do, your conversation as a writer will now sound something like this.
So, what do you do in your free time?
I write stuff sometimes, working on a book right now.
That's so cool. What's it about?
It's a dystopian fantasy based on Native American mythology.
Oh my gosh, I love fantasy.
Thank you for watching part 1 of this was only supposed to be 1 video series. Why is genre? Next time I will be continuing with part 2. How genre helps you find your audience and helps your audience find you. If you want to hear me talk more for some reason, click like and subscribe or boot the notification bell. Otherwise, have a great day, and as always, stay uncomfortable.